The coffin was sealed. The world believed he was dead. But inside a dark surveillance room, Ethan Vale watched his own funeral and waited to see if the woman he loved would betray him. Ethan Vale did not lose. Not in business. Not in power. Not in control. As the billionaire CEO of Vale Industries, his empire stretched across continents. He built his fortune from calculated risks and ruthless precision. But love? Love had no contracts, no guarantees, no loyalty clauses. And Ava Monroe was the only thing in his life he couldn't control, so he decided to test her in the most dangerous way possible. He would die and watch what she did after. Welcome to Prime Tale, where love is twisted and secrets run deep. Subscribe, you won't see the ending coming. Ethan Vale had built a billion-dollar empire before the age of 35. At 38, he controlled industries, politicians, markets. His name opened doors. His silence closed deals. But tonight, sitting alone in his glass-walled penthouse overlooking Manhattan, he felt something unfamiliar, uncertainty. His phone screen glowed in the dark. 11:47 p.m. Ava had texted 2 hours ago. I'm going to bed early tonight. Big meeting tomorrow. Love you. He stared at the message. It wasn't what she said. It was what she didn't say. No call. No FaceTime. No goodnight voice. Just a message. 3 weeks ago, she never would have gone to sleep without hearing his voice. 3 weeks ago, she would have driven across the city just to kiss him goodnight. 3 weeks ago, she was different. Or maybe he was. Ethan replayed the memory again. The charity gala. Ava laughing. A man leaning too close. Her hand brushing his arm. The way she didn't pull away immediately. He told himself it meant nothing. But doubt was a seed. And once planted, it grew violently. He rose from his chair and walked toward the massive windows. Below, the city pulsed with life. Horns, lights, movement. Up here, everything felt isolated. He picked up his phone and made a call. The man answered on the second ring. Mr. Vale. Sebastian, Ethan said calmly. I need a situation handled. There was no hesitation in Sebastian's voice. Surveillance. Yes. On whom? A pause. Ethan's jaw tightened. Ava Monroe. The words tasted bitter. Sebastian didn't react. He never did. Former intelligence operative. Now private contractor for the ultra-wealthy. I'll need parameters. Everything, Ethan said. Calls. Meetings. Locations. I want to know where she breathes. A slight pause. Then understood. The call ended. Ethan stood there, staring at his reflection in the glass. What are you doing? He had never monitored a woman before. He had never doubted this intensely. But power taught him one rule. Trust but verify. 3 days later, Sebastian delivered the first report. Ava went to work. Ava met her friend Chloe for lunch. Ava returned home. Nothing suspicious. Yet Ethan felt no relief. Instead, he felt frustration. Because doubt wasn't about evidence. It was about fear. On the fourth night, Ethan drove to her apartment unannounced. He didn't text, didn't call. He wanted to see her reaction. When she opened the door, she froze. Not guilt, surprise. Ethan, you didn't say you were coming. He stepped inside slowly. Do I need an appointment? She frowned slightly. Of course not. I would have cooked. He studied her face carefully. No panic, no fear, just confusion. She walked toward him and wrapped her arms around his waist. He felt her warmth, her heartbeat. Was this fake, or was he losing his mind? I missed you, she whispered. He didn't hug her back immediately. That hesitation lasted 1 second, but she felt it. She pulled back slightly. Is everything okay? There it was. The crack. The distance. Ethan forced a smile. Just work. She searched his eyes like she always did, trying to read what he never said. You've been distant, she admitted softly. Distant. He almost laughed at the irony. I've been busy. That's not the same thing. Her voice held hurt now. And something else. Fear. But fear of what? Losing him? Or being exposed? That night, after she fell asleep beside him, Ethan lay awake staring at the ceiling. He watched her breathing. Slow. Peaceful. Could someone fake that? Could someone lie this beautifully? His phone vibrated quietly on the nightstand. A message from Sebastian. Unknown male contact saved as Daniel called Ava at 9:12 p.m. Duration. For minutes. Ethan's blood ran cold. He slowly slid out of bed without waking her and stepped onto the balcony. He dialed Sebastian immediately. Who is Daniel? Still tracing. Trace faster. A pause. Mr. Vale, I should advise caution. Ethan's voice turned sharp. Explain. You're looking for betrayal. Ethan stared into the darkness. What if there isn't any? Sebastian continued carefully. Sometimes when powerful men expect deception, they create it. Ethan ended the call. He didn't want philosophy. He wanted certainty. The next morning, Ava woke to find him already dressed. Leaving early, she asked. Yes. She sat up, sheets falling slightly from her shoulder. You didn't kiss me goodbye. He froze for half a second, then walked back, leaned down, and kissed her gently. Her fingers curled into his shirt. She didn't want him to pull away. He did anyway. On the drive back to his penthouse, Ethan made the decision. Surveillance wasn't enough. Reports weren't enough. He needed something irreversible. A situation where truth would reveal itself without manipulation, where loyalty would either survive or die. By the time he reached his office, the plan had already begun forming. Accident, closed casket, public tragedy. No body. He would disappear. And watch. If she moved on too quickly, if she smiled too soon, if she called Daniel again, he would know. And if she shattered, if she broke, if she refused to let him go, then she was his. Completely. By evening, Sebastian was sitting across from him in the private executive lounge. You're serious, Sebastian said quietly. Yes. You understand this crosses into psychological warfare. Ethan's expression remained calm. I built my empire through warfare. This is different. Ethan leaned forward. Can you do it? Sebastian studied him carefully. Car accident. Coastal highway. Fire damage makes identification difficult. Closed casket. Private autopsy handled internally. How long can I remain legally dead? With the right paperwork? Indefinitely. Ethan stood and walked toward the window again. Below, the world moved unaware. You have 72 hours, he said. Sebastian rose slowly. And her? Ethan's eyes darkened. She'll attend my funeral. And you? I'll be watching. As Sebastian left, Ethan remained alone. For the first time since building his empire, he felt something that resembled fear. Not fear of death, fear of the answer. Because once the coffin closed, there would be no going back. And somewhere across the city, Ava felt a chill she couldn't explain, as if something in her world was about to collapse. And she had no idea. The man she loved was preparing to die. On purpose. The rain started at 9:17 p.m., soft at first, then violent. Sheets of water slamming against the windshield of Ethan Vale's black Aston Martin as it sped down the empty coastal highway. At least, that's what the cameras would show. The security footage had already been arranged. The timestamps altered, the patrol routes adjusted. Every variable accounted for, except one, the human heart. Ethan's fingers tightened around the steering wheel as he drove toward the predetermined crash point. His pulse was steady, controlled, but his thoughts weren't. Ava's smile earlier that morning replayed in his head. "You're working too hard," she had said, brushing imaginary dust off his jacket. "One day you'll collapse." He almost laughed at the irony. If only she knew. Sebastian's voice echoed through the discreet earpiece. 2 minutes. Ahead, the road curved sharply along the cliffside. The ocean below was dark and endless, waves crashing violently against jagged rocks. It would look believable. Speed, rain, oil spill staged earlier that evening. Loss of control, impact, fire. Ethan pressed harder on the accelerator. If she loves me, she'll brake. If she doesn't, the car hit the slick patch. He turned the wheel sharply. The vehicle spun violently, tires screeching against asphalt. The impact with the guardrail sounded catastrophic. Metal folding, glass shattering, airbags deploying in controlled precision. Then the final stage push. Sebastian's secondary vehicle rammed into the Aston's rear quarter panel, forcing it sideways into the barrier. The front end crumpled convincingly. Fuel ignited. Flames rose instantly. From a distance, it looked fatal. Inside, Ethan was already moving. Before the fire could spread, Sebastian's team pulled him through the pre-cut section, a reinforced windshield on the passenger side, shielded from camera angles. Within seconds, Ethan was transferred into the back of a black SUV parked beyond the blind curve. The Aston Martin burned fiercely. By the time emergency services arrived, the body inside would be unrecognizable because there would be no body, only stage remains. And a billionaire declared dead. 9:42 p.m. Ava's phone rang. She almost ignored it. She was in the kitchen, barefoot, making tea. The caller ID read, "Unknown." She answered anyway. "Hello, is this Ava Monroe?" Her heart skipped. "Yes, this is Officer Ramirez from Highway Patrol. I'm calling regarding Ethan Vale." The cup slipped from her hand. It shattered against the tile. "I'm sorry," the officer continued carefully. "There's been an accident." The world tilted. Her breathing stopped. "What kind of accident?" Silence. Then the words that split her life in half. "Fatal." The phone slid from her fingers. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stood there frozen, as if her body refused to process it. Fatal. No, that didn't make sense. Ethan didn't lose. Ethan didn't crash. Ethan didn't die. She grabbed the phone with shaking hands. "That's not possible. You're wrong." "I'm very sorry, ma'am. The vehicle was registered under his name. We'll need you to come identify." She hung up. Her chest tightened violently. Air wouldn't come in. "This is a mistake. This is a mistake. This is a mistake." She called him immediately. Voicemail. She called again. Straight to voicemail. She tried FaceTime. Nothing. Her knees gave out. She hit the floor hard. The silence in the apartment felt cruel. Too loud. Too empty. And somewhere in a secure surveillance room across the city, Ethan watched her collapse. 6 monitors surrounded him. Camera feeds from her building hallway. Her living room. Her bedroom. Her kitchen. He saw the shattered mug. The tremor in her hands. The way she kept shaking her head, like reality would reverse itself. Sebastian stood behind him silently. "She believes it," he said. Ethan didn't respond. Ava crawled toward the couch and pulled herself up weakly. "No," she whispered to the empty room. No. She dialed his number again. Voicemail. Her voice broke this time. "Ethan, this isn't funny. If this is some sick joke, I swear." she couldn't finish, because somewhere deep inside, she knew it wasn't a joke. And Ethan felt something twist in his chest. Not satisfaction, not relief, something darker, guilt, but he silenced it. Wait, watch, learn. Midnight, the news broke. Billionaire CEO Ethan Vale dies in fiery crash. Clips of the burning Aston Martin played on repeat across every major network. Stock markets trembled. Social media exploded. Vale Industries shares began to plummet. In Ava's apartment, the television glowed coldly. She sat on the floor, arms wrapped around herself, staring at the footage. That's his car. That's his ring on the dashboard. That's... She screamed suddenly. Raw. Animal. Broken. And Ethan flinched in the surveillance room. He didn't expect that sound. It wasn't controlled grief. It was devastation. She grabbed her phone again. This time, she called someone else. Daniel. Ethan leaned forward sharply. The call connected. Daniel, she sobbed. Rage flooded Ethan instantly. So he is important enough to call first. On screen, Ava could barely speak. I need you to come over. Ethan's jaw tightened. There it is. But then she continued. I can't be alone. Her voice shattered completely. I think I'm going to die too. Silence filled the surveillance room. Sebastian glanced at Ethan carefully. She's in shock. Ethan didn't speak. 20 minutes later, Daniel arrived. The hallway camera caught him knocking urgently. Ethan's fist clenched. The door opened. Daniel stepped inside quickly. He didn't hug her immediately. He looked stunned. Then he said something Ethan couldn't hear. Ava collapsed into him, and Daniel held her, not romantically, not passionately, protectively, like family. Ethan's breathing slowed. Zoom in. The camera zoomed slightly. Daniel's face was clear now. Late 40s. Wedding ring visible. Concerned expression. Sebastian spoke quietly. Background check completed. Ethan didn't look away from the screen. Report. Daniel Monroe. Ethan froze. Monroe. Ava's older brother. Silence. The air shifted. Ethan's entire body went still. Brother. 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 On the screen, Ava clung to Daniel like she was drowning. And Ethan realized something horrifying. He had never asked, never cared enough to know. He had never asked, never cared enough to know, because he assumed the worst first. The weight of that realization pressed heavily against his chest. Sebastian studied him carefully. Still think she's hiding something? Ethan didn't answer, because on the screen, Ava whispered something through tears. And the audio feed finally caught it clearly. I never told him. Daniel frowned. Told him what? Ava pressed her shaking hand against her stomach and whispered, I was going to tell him tonight. The room went silent. Ethan's heart stopped. Sebastian turned slowly toward him. On the monitor, Ava broke down completely. I'm pregnant. Everything inside Ethan collapsed. The plan, the certainty, the control, all of it shattered in 1 second. Pregnant, his child. She was going to tell him tonight. And instead, he gave her death. Ethan staggered back slightly. For the first time in his life, he had made a mistake. And it wasn't small. It was irreversible. On screen, Ava cried into her brother's chest. I didn't even get to tell him he was going to be a father. And in the dark surveillance room, the billionaire who staged his own death to test loyalty realized he may have just destroyed the only thing that was ever truly his. The coffin was solid black, polished, immaculate, sealed, a platinum plaque read, Ethan Alexander Vale, 1988 to 2026. Beloved son, visionary, leader. The church was filled beyond capacity. CEOs, Politicians, foreign investors, media stationed outside like vultures, and at the very back, hidden in a tinted surveillance van across the street, Ethan Vale watched his own funeral. The live stream feed displayed 6 camera angles: front altar, left aisle, right aisle, entrance, balcony, and one tight lens focused only on her. Ava, she sat in the front row, dressed in black, face pale, hands resting protectively over her stomach. She hadn't slept. That much was obvious. Dark circles framed her eyes. Her lips were cracked, her posture fragile. She looked smaller. Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. She hasn't left her apartment except for this, Sebastian reported quietly from the passenger seat. She declined all interviews, refused financial discussions. Board members are requesting immediate restructuring. Ethan didn't respond. He was staring at Ava, waiting, testing. The priest began speaking. Ethan Vale was a titan in business. Words filled the cathedral. Meaningless, distant, muted. Ethan wasn't listening. He was watching her breathing, her trembling fingers, her jaw tightening as the casket was wheeled forward. Then something unexpected happened. Ava stood. The entire room shifted. Whispers spread like wildfire. She walked slowly toward the podium. Ethan leaned forward instinctively. Sebastian glanced at him. This wasn't scheduled. Ava adjusted the microphone. Her voice cracked immediately. I wasn't prepared to speak. She swallowed. But Ethan hated unpreparedness. A faint ripple of restrained laughter passed through the crowd. Ethan's lips parted slightly. She continued. He was many things. Difficult, demanding, intense. A small smile touched her face through tears. But he loved deeply. Ethan's pulse slowed. He didn't show it the way most people do, she said softly. He showed it through protection, through provision, through control. The word control hit harder than the rest. Her eyes lifted slightly, not at the crowd, at the coffin. You never trusted easily, she whispered. The room was silent now. But when you did, you gave everything. Ethan felt his throat tighten. Ava inhaled shakily. And I wish you trusted me more. The word struck like a blade. Sebastian glanced sideways slowly. On screen, Ava's composure cracked. I wish you knew, she continued, voice breaking completely, that I was never going anywhere. Her hand moved instinctively to her stomach again. I wish you knew we were going to be a family. Gasps spread across the cathedral. The board members exchanged looks. Journalists leaned forward. Ethan froze. She hadn't told anyone. Until now. I found out 3 days ago, she whispered. I was waiting for the right moment. Tears streamed freely down her face now. You always said timing was everything. She gave a shattered smile. I guess we ran out of time. And then she stepped back. The church erupted in quiet sobbing. And inside the surveillance van, Ethan felt something unfamiliar. Shame. This wasn't performance. This wasn't manipulation. This was real. She's securing position, Sebastian said calmly. Ethan turned sharply. What? Public pregnancy announcement ensures inheritance protection. Media sympathy. Bored hesitation. Ethan stared at him. You think this is strategy? Sebastian didn't flinch. I think powerful people rarely move emotionally. Ethan looked back at the screen. Ava wasn't speaking to anyone. She had stepped beside the coffin and placed her palm against it. Her lips moved silently. The audio mic barely caught it. I forgive you. Ethan's breath stopped. Forgive? For what? What did she think he had done? The service ended slowly. Executives lined up to offer condolences. Ava remained composed but distant. Then something shifted. A black Rolls-Royce pulled up outside. Not Vale Industries. Not family. The door opened. A tall man stepped out. Silver hair. Impeccable suit. Predatory presence. Sebastian straightened immediately. That's Victor Lang. Ethan's jaw hardened. Victor Lang. Rival investor. Hostile takeover specialist. He approached the church steps with calculated calm. On the monitor, Ava noticed him too. Her body stiffened. Victor leaned in slightly when he reached her. The audio feed caught fragments. Tragic loss. Company vulnerable. We should talk privately. Ethan's hands curled into fists. Not because of jealousy. Because of timing. Predators circled when empires fell. Victor's hand hovered briefly near Ava's lower back. Not touching. Testing boundaries. Ava stepped away immediately. Clear. Firm. No business today, she said coldly. Victor smiled thinly. Business doesn't wait for grief. Ethan felt pride flicker. She didn't falter. Victor leaned closer. You'll need guidance now. Her voice dropped. I don't need you. And she walked away. Victor's eyes followed her, calculating. Sebastian spoke quietly. He's already buying shares. Ethan's gaze darkened. How much? 6% as of this morning. The game had shifted. This was no longer just about love. This was power. And if Victor suspected weakness, he would destroy everything. On screen, Ava exited the cathedral alone. Daniel followed close behind. Reporters swarmed instantly. Miss Monroe, is it true you're pregnant? Will you inherit Vale Industries? Was there a prenuptial agreement? Cameras flashed violently. Ava froze under the assault. Daniel stepped in front of her protectively. Back up. But the damage was done. The world now knew. Ethan sat back slowly, the weight of his actions settling deeper. He hadn't just tested her love. He had exposed her to wolves. Victor, the board, the media, and she was carrying his child. Sebastian turned toward him carefully. You need to decide how long this continues. Ethan stared at the live feed. Ava sat in the back of a car now, staring blankly ahead. She wasn't crying anymore. She wasn't speaking. She looked numb. I wanted certainty, Ethan murmured. And now? Sebastian asked. Ethan didn't answer, because something else was happening. On the screen, Ava's phone vibrated. She looked down. Read the message, and her expression changed. Not grief, not shock, fear. Sebastian zoomed the camera feed through reflection on the glass. The message preview became barely visible. Unknown number. I know he's not dead. Ethan's blood ran cold. Sebastian looked at him sharply. That wasn't us. Ava's breathing became uneven. Another message arrived. Meet me tonight. Come alone, or everyone finds out. The car continued moving. Ava stared straight ahead. Trapped. And for the first time since staging his death, Ethan felt something worse than guilt. He felt danger. Someone else was playing a game, and they knew the truth. The car hadn't even reached Ava's apartment before the third message arrived. Unknown number. 11 p.m. Pier 17. Come alone. Her fingers trembled around the phone. Daniel noticed immediately. What is it? Nothing, she said too quickly. He didn't believe her. Ava. She forced a breath. I just need to go home. Across the city, inside the surveillance control room, Ethan was already standing. Tracked the number. Sebastian's fingers moved rapidly over the keyboard. Encrypted, routed through layered servers. Not amateur. Who knows? Ethan demanded. Not the police. Not emergency services. Our documentation was airtight. Ethan's jaw tightened. Then someone watched. And if someone watched, that meant the accident hadn't been as invisible as he believed. 10:42 p.m. Ava stood in front of her bathroom mirror. Her face was pale but steady. She should call the police. She should call Daniel. She should ignore it. But the message replayed in her mind. I know he's not dead. If someone was spreading lies during this fragile moment, if someone was trying to manipulate the company, or worse, her child, she couldn't ignore it. She slipped into a black coat, left her phone on the kitchen counter, and walked out. In the surveillance room, alarms triggered immediately. She left her device, Sebastian said. Ethan's chest tightened. Location? Cameras show she requested a ride share. Track it. I can't access private driver systems without triggering flags. Ethan grabbed his jacket. Then we follow physically. Sebastian hesitated. If we're seen, we won't be. For the first time since staging his death, Ethan stepped back into the night. Pier 17 was nearly empty. Wind cut sharply across the water. The docks creaked. Ava stepped out of the car alone, her coat wrapped tightly around her. She scanned the darkness. Hello? No answer. Then, a slow clap echoed from the shadows. Victor Lang stepped into view, immaculate as always, unbothered. You shouldn't be out alone, he said smoothly. Ava's stomach dropped. You. Victor smiled faintly. You look tired. You send the messages? I sent many messages today, he replied. Which one frightened you? Her pulse pounded. You said Ethan isn't dead. Victor studied her carefully. Interesting. You didn't deny it. Her breath caught, behind a stack of shipping crates 50 meters away. Ethan watched, hidden, alive, and furious. Victor continued calmly. Let's not insult each other. The crash was convenient. You're insane, Ava whispered. Am I? He stepped closer. You announced a pregnancy at the funeral. Very strategic. That wasn't strategy. No. His eyes hardened slightly. Vail Industries lost 14% market value in one day. The board is scrambling. Investors are panicking. He circled her slowly. And you're the emotional widow carrying the air. Ethan's fist tightened. Victor lowered his voice. Tell me something, Ava. Did he involve you in it? In what? In disappearing. Her heart raced. She didn't know. She didn't understand. But she knew one thing. If Ethan was somehow alive, she would feel it. Wouldn't she? Victor leaned closer. I have analysts reviewing the crash footage. Something is wrong. Ethan's blood ran cold. How wrong? Ava asked, forcing steadiness. No confirmed DNA release. Closed casket rushed. Internal autopsy. He smiled thinly. And Ethan Vail does not die by accident. Silence stretched between them. Victor's gaze dropped briefly to her stomach. You're vulnerable now. Her body tensed protectively. I would hate for unnecessary investigations to stress you. There it was. Not sympathy. Leverage. What do you want? She asked quietly. Control. Simple. Honest. I acquire majority shares. You support the transition publicly. In exchange, I bury my suspicions. And if I refuse? Victor's expression turned colder. Then I expose them. Behind the crates, Ethan moved instinctively, but Sebastian's hand stopped him. Not yet. Ethan's voice was lethal. He's threatening her. He's negotiating. Ava's voice trembled but held. You're wrong. Victor raised an eyebrow. About Ethan? Her eyes filled with tears, but not weakness. He would never run. He would never fake his death. Ethan felt something crack inside him. Victor studied her carefully. You're certain? Yes. No hesitation. No doubt. Yes. Ethan staggered back slightly. She believed in him. Completely. Even when he didn't deserve it. Victor sighed softly. You're either loyal or very naive. Leave me alone, she said. Victor stepped back. For now. He adjusted his cufflinks calmly. But time reveals truth. He turned and disappeared into the darkness. Ava stood there shaking. Alone, except she wasn't. Ethan stepped forward instinctively, but stopped himself again. She would see him, and everything would explode. Instead, he watched her wrap her arms around herself. Small, cold, carrying his child. Sebastian spoke quietly. Victor doesn't have proof. Yet, Ethan replied, and if he digs deeper? Ethan's eyes darkened. Then we end it. Back at the control room, Ava returned home. She locked the door, collapsed onto the couch, and finally, she broke. Not loud, not dramatic. Just silent tears sliding down her face. I trusted you, she whispered into the empty room. Ethan froze. You promised you'd never leave. The words hit harder than anything Victor said. Sebastian looked at him carefully. You tested loyalty. Ethan didn't respond, because he was watching the woman he loved cry over a lie he created. And somewhere deep inside, the billionaire who controlled everything realized he had lost control of the one thing that mattered. Then Ava did something unexpected. She walked into the bedroom, opened Ethan's old drawer, and pulled out something small, a velvet box. Ethan's breathing stopped. She opened it. Inside, a second ring, engagement ring. He had planned to propose next month. She didn't know. She stared at it through tears. I was going to say yes, she whispered. Ethan's knees nearly gave out. Sebastian's voice cut through the silence. You can stop this now. Ethan stared at the monitor, at the woman who believed in him without question, at the child growing inside her, at the empire crumbling without leadership. Victor was circling. The board was panicking. And now, someone suspected the truth. This was no longer a test. It was a ticking bomb. Ethan's voice came out low. Prepare to return. Sebastian looked at him sharply. Public resurrection? No. Ethan's eyes hardened. Private first. Because before the world knew he was alive, Ava would. And this time, there would be no test. Only consequences. 3:12 a.m. Ava hadn't slept. The apartment was silent, except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic below. She sat on the edge of the bed, Ethan's second ring still in her hand. Her thumb traced the diamond absently. I hate you, she whispered through tears. And somewhere in the hallway outside her door, Ethan Vale stood alive, breathing, terrified, for the first time in his life. Sebastian stood a few feet behind him. This is the point of no return, he said quietly. Ethan didn't respond. He lifted his hand and knocked 3 slow knocks. Inside the apartment, Ava froze. Her heart began pounding instantly. No one visited at this hour. She stood slowly, wiped her face, walked toward the door. Another knock. Her fingers trembled as she unlocked it. When she opened the door, the world stopped. Ethan stood there, alive, real, eyes locked on hers. For a full 5 seconds, neither of them moved. Her brain refused to process what she was seeing. She blinked once, twice. Then she whispered, I'm dreaming. His voice was low, careful. No. Her hand lifted slowly, touched his chest. Warm, solid. Her fingers curled into his shirt. She inhaled sharply. You're dead. I know. The slap came fast, sharp, echoing down the hallway. Sebastian quietly stepped back. Ava's entire body shook. "You're dead," she screamed again, hitting his chest with both fists now. "They buried you. I watched them bury you. I'm sorry. Sorry." Her voice cracked violently. "You let me bury you." Tears streamed down her face uncontrollably. Ethan didn't defend himself. Didn't stop her. He deserved it. "You let me stand there," she continued. "You let me tell the world I was carrying your child." His breath hitched. "I know." Her eyes widened. "You knew." Silence. The truth sat between them. Heavy, ugly. "You were watching," she whispered. He didn't deny it. And that hurt her more than anything. Her voice dropped to something small. "You were watching me break." Ethan's composure finally cracked. "I thought you were hiding something." She stared at him like she'd never seen him before. "Hiding?" "Daniel. The calls. The distance." "That's your excuse?" she asked in disbelief. "You faked your death because my brother called me?" Ethan closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, he wasn't the billionaire. He was just a man who made a catastrophic mistake. "I needed certainty." "You needed therapy," she snapped. The words hit harder than the slap. Silence filled the space again. Then something shifted in her expression. Not anger, not grief. Something colder. "You don't trust me." It wasn't a question. Ethan swallowed. "I trust you now." She laughed weakly. "Now." She stepped back slowly. "You tested me like I was an employee. That's not fair." "No," she said quietly. "It's not." Her hand moved protectively over her stomach. "You didn't just test me." Her voice trembled again. "You tested your child." The weight of that landed hard. "I never meant to hurt you, but you did." She walked toward the window, turned her back to him. "I forgave you your funeral." Ethan felt something inside him collapse. "And now?" he asked quietly. She didn't turn around. "I don't know who you are." That was worse than anger, worse than screaming, because anger meant emotion. This was distance. Suddenly, Ethan's phone vibrated. Sebastian stepped forward urgently. "It's happening." Ethan answered. "What?" "Victor just acquired 18% controlling shares," Sebastian said. "Emergency board meeting at 8 a.m. They're voting for interim leadership." Ethan's jaw hardened. "They can't. You're legally dead." Ava turned slowly. "You're going back?" "I have to." "You don't exist." "I'll fix it." She stared at him. "You don't get to fix everything." He stepped closer. "Victor is threatening you. I can handle him. He knows something." That made her pause. "He thinks you're alive." Silence. Her heart pounded again. "You told him?" she whispered. "No." "Then how does he know?" Ethan didn't answer, because that was the part he didn't understand either. 7:58 a.m. Vale Industries headquarters. The boardroom buzzed with tension. Directors sat around the long glass table. Victor Lang stood calmly at the head. "As unfortunate as Ethan's passing is," he said smoothly, "leadership vacuums destroy companies." A board member cleared his throat. "And your proposal?" "I step in temporarily. Stabilize stock. Protect investor confidence." "And Ms. Monroe?" Victor's expression didn't change. "She is emotionally compromised." The doors to the boardroom opened. Every head turned. Ava walked in. Alone. Composed. Pregnant. Victor smiled faintly. "Ms. Monroe." She took a seat at the table. "I'm not emotionally compromised." One director shifted uncomfortably. "With respect, you have no executive authority." She met his eyes calmly. "No." Then she placed a folder on the table. "But my child does." Silence. Victor's smile faded slightly. She opened the folder. Ethan updated his will 2 months ago. Ethan froze in the surveillance room watching. She continued evenly. In the event of his death, majority shares transfer to his legal heir. Gasps around the table. Victor's jaw tightened. There is no heir yet. There is, she said quietly, and I have medical confirmation. Victor leaned forward. That can be challenged. Try, she replied. Confidence, strength, not broken, not weak. Ethan felt pride rise through the guilt, but Victor wasn't finished. He leaned back slowly. DNA testing would confirm legitimacy. The room went still. Ava's face went pale. Ethan's blood ran cold. DNA testing. There was no body. No DNA. Victor smiled slightly. Without confirmation of paternity, claims become complicated. He was cornering her. Legally, strategically, cruelly. In the surveillance room, Ethan made the decision. No more hiding. Sebastian looked at him sharply. You're about to detonate the entire market. Open the press conference channel. You're serious? Yes. Because this wasn't about pride anymore. It wasn't about certainty. It wasn't about control. It was about protecting her. And the child he almost destroyed with paranoia. Back in the boardroom, Victor stood. I moved for immediate vote. The doors opened again. But this time, it wasn't Ava. It wasn't security. It wasn't media. It was Ethan Vale, alive, standing at the entrance. The room exploded. Chairs scraped. Voices rose. Shock rippled through every face. Victor didn't move. Didn't blink. He just stared. Ethan walked forward slowly. Controlled. Powerful. Alive. Meeting adjourned, he said calmly. Silence fell instantly. Because even dead, he commanded the room. Victor spoke first. Well, he said smoothly, this is unexpected. Ethan stopped directly across from him. Yes, he replied quietly. It is. And for the first time, Victor's eyes showed something new. Not strategy, not calculation, but challenge. The game wasn't over. It had just begun. The news broke in under 4 minutes. Billionaire CEO Ethan Vale alive after reported death. Stock markets froze. Trading was temporarily halted. Financial networks erupted in chaos. Inside Vale Industries headquarters, security sealed every entrance. Board members shouted over one another. Victor Lang remained seated, calm, watching. Ethan stood at the head of the table now, alive, present, dominant. But the room no longer looked at him with loyalty. They looked at him with suspicion. One director stood abruptly. Do you understand what you've done? Ethan didn't answer. Another slammed a tablet onto the table. Fraud investigations are already opening. Insurance claims were processed. Government agencies were notified of your death. Silence fell, because now, this wasn't just personal. It was criminal. Victor finally spoke. You staged a fatal accident. Ethan met his eyes. Yes. The honesty stunned the room. Victor tilted his head slightly. May I ask why? The question hung like a blade. Ethan could lie. He could fabricate corporate espionage, security threats, foreign targeting. But he didn't. I made a personal error. A murmur of disbelief spread. Victor almost smiled. You destabilized a multi-billion-dollar corporation over a personal error? Yes. The directors exchanged horrified looks. One whispered, he's unstable. Ethan heard it, and for the first time, he didn't react, because part of him wondered if they were right. Meanwhile, Ava stood outside the boardroom doors. She had watched him walk in alive, watched the shock ripple across faces, watched her grief turn into public spectacle. But she didn't feel relief. She felt exposed. Again, Daniel approached quickly. "You should leave," he said quietly. "Why?" "Because this is about to get ugly." Inside the boardroom, Victor stood slowly. "Authorities will demand explanation," he said evenly. "You falsified death certificates, triggered market collapse, manipulated public perception." Ethan didn't flinch. "Yes. And if the SEC decides this qualifies as market manipulation?" Ethan's voice was steady. "I'll face it." That answer surprised even Sebastian, who stood silently near the wall. Victor studied him carefully. "You would risk prison?" "If necessary." Silence, because that wasn't the answer Victor expected. Victor expected arrogance, denial, deflection, not acceptance. But Victor had one more card. "You're forgetting something," he said smoothly. Ethan's gaze sharpened. "Am I?" Victor slid a tablet across the table. Security footage played. Grainy. Nighttime. Coastal highway. A second vehicle. Hidden angle. Ethan's extraction. The SUV. Sebastian's face went still. Victor leaned back. "I began investigating the crash the moment I saw inconsistencies." Ethan's jaw tightened. "How long?" "Long enough." Victor's eyes shifted slightly toward the door. "Long enough to know you weren't alone." Silence thickened. "If I release this," Victor continued calmly, "it becomes conspiracy, fraud, obstruction." One director whispered, "We could lose everything." Victor's gaze returned to Ethan. "But I'm a reasonable man." There was again negotiation. "You stepped down," Victor said evenly. "Publicly cite mental health strain. I assume leadership. The footage disappears." Ethan stared at him. "You want the throne. I want stability. You want power." Victor smiled faintly. "Power creates stability." The room felt smaller now. Ethan understood something clearly. Victor didn't care about the stage death. He cared about leverage. And now, he had it. Outside, Ava felt her phone vibrate. Unknown number. Her stomach tightened. She answered cautiously. "Yes." A distorted voice replied, "You should leave the building." Her blood ran cold. Who is this? Someone who knows Victor doesn't work alone. The line disconnected. Her heart pounded violently. She turned and saw two unfamiliar men entering the lobby. Not media, not security. Watching, calculating. Fear crept in slowly. This wasn't just corporate warfare anymore. Inside the boardroom, Ethan made his decision. "You release the footage," he said calmly. The room froze. Victor's eyes narrowed slightly. "That's unwise." "Maybe." Ethan stepped closer. "But you're assuming I have more to lose than you." Victor's smile faded. Ethan's voice dropped. "You acquired shares rapidly before public announcement of my return." Victor's expression shifted barely. "Insider trading." Silence. "You suspected I was alive," Ethan continued. "You invested based on non-public knowledge." Victor didn't blink, but the board members did. "You're bluffing," Victor said quietly. Ethan leaned in. "Am I?" Sebastian placed a file on the table. Printed acquisition timestamps. Internal communications. Board members began reading. Victor's jaw tightened for the first time. "You were preparing takeover before legal confirmation of death," Ethan said. "And you're accusing me?" "I'm warning you." The room was electric now. Two predators circling. One wounded, one calculating. Victor finally straightened his jacket. "You're reckless," he said quietly. "Yes," Ethan replied. "I am." Silence. Then Victor smiled slightly. "Then let's both be reckless." He picked up his phone. Dialed. On the lobby security monitor. Two men began moving toward Ava. Sebastian saw it first. Ethan turned sharply. His blood ran cold. Victor watched his reaction carefully. "I told you," Victor said softly. "Power creates stability." Ethan moved instantly. The boardroom doors burst open. He ran, not like a billionaire, not like a CEO, like a man who finally understood what he could lose. In the lobby, one of the men grabbed Ava's arm. "Let go!" she shouted. The second reached toward her stomach. Everything inside Ethan snapped. He crossed the distance in seconds. The first punch landed hard. Clean, violent, uncontrolled. The man hit the marble floor instantly. Security rushed in. Daniel tackled the second attacker. Chaos erupted. Victor walked calmly into the lobby, watching, observing. Ethan stood over the fallen man, breathing heavily, rage blazing. Victor spoke quietly. "See what instability does?" Ethan turned slowly. "If she gets hurt." Victor's voice remained smooth. "She won't, unless markets continue collapsing." Ava stared between them, confused, terrified. "What is happening?" she demanded. Ethan's eyes softened instantly when he looked at her. "Go home." "No, this isn't safe." "You made it unsafe," she snapped. The words hit hard. Victor adjusted his cuffs. "Time is running out, Ethan." And then he left, just like that, as if he hadn't nearly triggered violence. Ethan stood frozen. Security dragging the men away. Sirens approaching. Media outside screaming questions. Ava stepped closer to him. "You brought this to my door," she said quietly. He had no defense, no excuse, just truth. "Yes." Her eyes filled again. "But this time," she continued, "it's not about loyalty." He waited. "It's about whether I can survive loving you." Those words shook him more than any threat, because for the first time, he realized something terrifying. He might not be fighting Victor. He might be fighting to keep her. And she was no longer certain she wanted to stay. The investigation began at sunrise. Federal agents walked into Vail Industries with warrants. Financial crimes, market manipulation, insurance fraud. Every executive was questioned. Every server was seized. Every movement monitored. Ethan sat calmly in his office while two agents stood across from him. "You knowingly falsified your death," one of them stated. "Yes." "For what purpose?" Silence. He could not say, "Because I didn't trust the woman I loved." So instead, he said, "It was a personal psychological lapse." The agent stared at him. "You destabilized international markets over a lapse?" "Yes." The honesty made them uncomfortable. One agent leaned forward. "Are you being coerced by anyone?" Ethan thought of Victor, of leverage, of threats, but he shook his head. "No." Outside the building, reporters screamed questions at anyone who exited. Inside, the board had split in half. Half still loyal to Ethan, half terrified of regulatory collapse. Victor watched from across the street in a black sedan, patient, waiting. He didn't need to win immediately. He just needed Ethan weakened. By afternoon, Ethan finally returned to the penthouse. Empty, silent, cold. "Ava," he called. No answer. He checked the bedroom, bathroom, kitchen. Nothing. Her clothes were gone. Her suitcase gone. The velvet ring box gone. His chest tightened. He called her phone. Straight to voicemail. Again. Nothing. He called Daniel. Voicemail. Something inside him began unraveling. Track her. He ordered Sebastian immediately. Sebastian was already typing. No phone signal. Her device is off. Security cameras? Disabled in her building lobby. Ethan went still. Disabled? That wasn't us. Cold dread filled the room. Victor, Ethan said quietly. Possibly, Sebastian replied. But there's something else. He turned the laptop toward Ethan. Security footage from across the street. A black SUV. Ava stepping inside. Voluntarily. Not forced. Ethan's pulse pounded. Zoom. The driver's face remained obscured. But the passenger in the back. Ethan froze. It wasn't Victor. It was someone else. A man older than Victor. Sharp. Composed. Familiar. Sebastian whispered. That's Marcus Vale. Ethan's blood ran cold. His uncle. The man who once tried to take the company from Ethan's father. The man who disappeared from the board years ago after a hostile dispute. He's been silent for 5 years, Sebastian said. Not silent, Ethan replied darkly. Waiting. Meanwhile, Ava sat inside a private estate outside the city. Large windows. Tight security. Too quiet. Marcus Vale poured tea calmly. You must be overwhelmed, he said gently. She didn't touch the cup. Why am I here? You're safe here. From who? He smiled faintly. From men who think power equals love. Her stomach tightened. You know Ethan is alive. Yes. And Victor? Ambitious. Predictable. She stared at him. Then what do you want? Marcus leaned forward slightly. You. Her breath caught. Not like that, he added smoothly. Your position. He gestured lightly toward her stomach. You carry the future of Vale Industries. She felt the weight of those words. I don't want the company. That's unfortunate. His tone cooled slightly. Because everyone wants you. She stood abruptly. I'm leaving. Security appeared instantly at the doorway. Not touching her. Blocking. Marcus remained seated. Relax. You are not a prisoner. Then let me go. Soon. Her pulse raced. You're just like them. Like who? Victor. Ethan. Marcus smiled faintly. No, I'm worse. Back at the penthouse. Ethan was already moving. Helicopter prepped. Location triangulated from traffic cameras. Don't go alone, Sebastian warned. I'm not. Security team assembled quickly, but Ethan wasn't thinking strategically anymore. He was thinking emotionally. She left because of me. She's vulnerable because of me. Every step of this spiral traced back to one moment. Doubt. And now, he might lose everything. At this state, Marcus walked Ava toward the balcony. You look frightened, he observed calmly. I'm not, she replied. He studied her carefully. Good. Fear clouds decision-making. Then stop trying to scare me. He smiled slightly. You misunderstand me. I'm offering protection. From you? He didn't answer. Instead, he asked, Do you love him? Silence. Yes. Even now. Her voice trembled slightly. Yes. Marcus nodded slowly. Interesting. A helicopter sound began building in the distance. Marcus glanced upward calmly. Right on schedule. Ava's heart leapt. Ethan. The helicopter landed violently on the estate grounds. Security scrambled. Marcus didn't move. Ethan stormed inside within minutes. Security teams collided, weapons drawn. Chaos balanced on a razor's edge. Then, Ethan walked into the main hall and saw her, alive, unharmed, standing beside Marcus. Relief hit first, then rage. You don't take what's mine, Ethan said quietly. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Mine! Ava flinched slightly at the word. Marcus observed it. She's not an asset, Ethan. Ethan ignored him. Are you hurt? He asked Ava directly. She shook her head, but she didn't run to him. That hurt more than anything. Marcus clasped his hands calmly. You created instability. Victor exploited it. I intervened. By kidnapping her? She walked in willingly. Ethan looked at her. Why? Her answer was steady. Because I needed space. The words landed heavy. You needed space for me? Yes. Marcus stepped aside slightly. You see? She's not weak. Ethan's voice dropped. You don't get to use her. Marcus smiled faintly. I'm not using her. He stepped closer to Ethan. I'm reminding you of something your father forgot. Ethan's jaw tightened. And what is that? Power without discipline destroys bloodlines. Silence. Ava stepped between them slightly. I'm not your battlefield. Marcus looked at her calmly. No, you're the future. She turned to Ethan. You don't get to decide my safety anymore. That cut deep. I was protecting you. No, she said softly. You were protecting your pride. Silence swallowed the room. Marcus watched carefully. You can both leave, he said finally. I've made my point. And what point is that? Ethan asked. Marcus's eyes hardened. You're not the only one capable of playing long games. Ethan understood. Victor wasn't the biggest threat. Family was. As they walked toward the helicopter, Ava stopped, turned to Ethan. If I come back with you, she said quietly, it's not because I trust you. He waited. It's because I still love you. Those words both saved him and shattered him, because love was no longer unconditional. It was fragile, and he had broken it. The charges were announced at 9 a.m. sharp. Federal prosecutors stood before cameras. Ethan Vale will face civil penalties for falsifying a death report and triggering market disruption. Gasps filled the press room. But then, no criminal prosecution will be pursued at this time, pending restitution agreements and cooperation. The market stabilized. Stocks slowly recovered. But Ethan's reputation? Irreversible damage. Inside Vale Industries, emergency restructuring was finalized. Ethan remained CEO, but under strict board oversight, reduced unilateral authority, shared executive governance, control limited. Victor Lang watched the announcement from his office. Calm, measured. He hadn't won, but he hadn't lost. And men like Victor only needed time. At the penthouse, Ava stood near the window, suitcase still unpacked, silence stretching between them. Ethan entered slowly. No arrogance, no dominance, no entitlement, just exhaustion. It's done, he said quietly. She didn't turn. I saw. A long pause followed. I could lose everything, he continued. She finally looked at him. You almost did. He swallowed. You should hate me. I tried, she admitted softly. Silence again. Then she asked the question that had been building for days. Why? Not about the company. Not about Victor. About the lie. He didn't look away this time. I grew up watching my father lose everything because he trusted the wrong people. Her expression softened slightly, but not enough. I built my life on control, he continued. On verification. On proof. And I wasn't proof. His voice cracked slightly. You were the only thing I couldn't measure. That honesty hit deeper than any defense. She walked closer. You were afraid. Yes. And instead of talking to me, I detonated my life. A small, painful smile touched her lips. Yes, you did. Silence wrapped around them. Then she placed his hand gently over her stomach. The movement was simple, but it changed everything. You don't get to test us, she said quietly. He nodded. I won't. You don't get to control us. I won't. You don't get to disappear when things get hard. His voice was firm now. I won't. Her eyes searched his face carefully, looking for doubt, for manipulation, for calculation. She found none. Just a man who had finally realized he could lose what mattered. "I don't forgive you yet," she said softly. "I know. I'm still angry. I know. But I don't want to raise this child without you." His breath caught. "Then don't." She exhaled slowly. "But if you ever test me again, I won't." And for the first time, she believed him, not because he proved it, not because he staged something, but because he finally stopped playing. 3 weeks later, Vail Industries held a controlled press conference. Ethan stood at the podium, Ava beside him, visible, present, unashamed. "I made a grave error in judgment," Ethan said calmly into microphones. "I allowed personal fear to dictate professional decisions." Cameras flashed, but leadership requires accountability. He turned slightly toward Ava. "And trust." That word mattered more than stock value. Reporters shouted questions. He didn't deflect. He didn't dominate. He answered, openly. Victor watched from a distance. He had expected collapse. Instead, he saw evolution. Marcus Vail, however, saw something else. From his estate, he watched the broadcast silently. "Good," he murmured. His assistant frowned. "Good." "Yes." "Why?" Marcus smiled faintly. Pressure creates refinement. He hadn't wanted to destroy Ethan. He wanted to test him, just like Ethan tested Ava. Only Marcus tested power. And Ethan had finally learned. That night, the penthouse felt different, warmer. Ava sat on the couch reviewing ultrasound images. Ethan watched her quietly. "You're staring," she said without looking up. "I almost lost this." She nodded. "Yes." He sat beside her slowly. "I don't deserve how strong you are." "No," she replied honestly. He almost laughed. "But you're learning." That mattered more than apologies. He hesitated, then reached into his pocket. The velvet box, the same one she found. He opened it. This time, he said quietly, "No games." Her heart raced. "No surveillance?" "No." "No stage funerals?" "Never again." A tear slipped down her cheek. He took her hand gently. "Ava Monroe, I don't want certainty." He inhaled deeply. "I want you." Silence filled the room. Soft, real, unscripted. "Yes," she whispered. Not because he was a billionaire, not because he built empires, but because he finally chose vulnerability over control. And that was the only thing she ever needed. Months later, their son was born under flashing cameras and global headlines. But inside the hospital room, there were no markets, no rivals, no leverage, just a father holding something fragile, terrified again, but for the right reasons. Ava watched him carefully. "You're thinking," she said softly. "Yes." "About what?" He looked down at his son. "Trust." She smiled faintly. "Good." Because this time, he wouldn't need to stage anything. He wouldn't need surveillance. He wouldn't need proof. He had already learned the hardest lesson power could teach. Love is not verified. It's given. And once broken, it's rebuilt slowly, without control, without games, without death. Thank you for watching to the end. Your time means a lot to us. Subscribe to our channel for more romance story. See you in the next video.